that hundreds of thousands of Australian customers will face energy price rises from today. And joining us live now is the Grattan Institute's Energy Program Director, Tony Wood. Tony, the companies here who are raising their prices say that these price rises are unavoidable. Does that wash in your view?
Well, everything's always avoidable. It's better who's going to pay for the avoiding them, right? So the argument here is that the gas prices that the people who sell the gas to us, the gas retailers, pay under long-term contracts, and those contracts are now reflecting the big increase in wholesale prices we saw last year. And that was predicted to come. It was included in the stuff that the Treasurer said last year at his budget speech. The deal that the government still hasn't finished, really, with the producers, which is terrible, hasn't yet had any impact on these gas price increases. And so I think they probably were largely unavoidable unless someone intervenes in very drastic ways. And of course, the other challenge is that new gas, if that's the answer, doesn't come on stream very quickly. And states like Victoria in particular, in the next couple of years, are facing a gas shortage. So this is all shaping up pretty badly. We're only into the 1st of February.
Yeah, and the government's asking for time for the price caps to come into effect. Does this show that that's not working, or do they in fact need that time?
Look, they do, because people weren't sitting around last year waiting for the government to intervene. They were forced to start to think about what they would do in their businesses. And so some of them, whether they're large industrials or the retailers who sell the gas to us, started to enter into new contracts. Now, those contracts would have been higher prices. The wholesale price of gas on the East Coast had moved up from about $6 a gigajoule up to something getting closer to 10. And of course, your viewers be aware that prices much, much higher than have been talked about. And so that was what they were faced with. So they had in some cases, they had no choice except to sign new contracts. And as those prices flow through, that's what we're now seeing. Now, the government then did take the action to intervene. It's still very messy. I think it's tragic that the government and the ACCC and the industry have not sorted this out. But the impact of the price cap will not start to flow until those prices start to flow through and the deals are done. And some of the producers are holding off, trying to work out, well, we don't think we really understand what the ACCC's rules are. The ACCC is saying, yes, you do. They're really straightforward. We've told you. This is not a very edifying debate at the moment, and it's not helping consumers, and it's not helping big users either.
So when does all this, do you think, start to come into effect, and when could we see prices come down?
Those two questions are very separate, I think. The first one is that I would expect we will see the impact of the government's actions coming through during this year. I mean, we are seeing forward electricity prices coming down, part of it due to the government's actions, part of it other things. And so I think that's going to start to happen. I don't think that's going to bring prices down. I mean, the whole point of all this was to avoid prices going up by more than we were hoping, much more than anyone was looking to see as acceptable. And I think the best we can hope for is that if we do see the increases we're talking about, and of course they do vary across the country from about 6% up to 25%, and 25% is huge, then that hopefully will then stabilise things. And for the rest of this year, I mean, those price increases mostly will hit consumers in winter, because that's when people use most of their gas for home heating and so forth, particularly in the ACT and Victoria.
People are going to riot then, Tony.
Well, yeah, I guess that's always a possibility. I'm not sure rioting will necessarily solve the problem,
Maybe.
Peter, but I think this is real frustration, right? Real frustration. And I think even though this increase, the one we're seeing now, had been flagged, that doesn't help when it happens. And I think even though the government's tried to be clear that what they're doing, it was not going to happen immediately and they're talking for time, I think that generally consumers are not really happy with that. Now, what they expect the government to do, I'm not too sure. So it really is a very difficult position for the government and consumers, but also for the government and the producers, because they still really haven't solved the way forward in terms of how they're going to get a stable gas price.
So just to summarise all of that, Tony, then is it a combination of these companies taking the mickey, the ACCC being toothless, and the government not really having much direction?
Well, I think there's no doubt that in some cases companies are making windfall profits. Now, they're not the ones necessarily who sell the gas to us. They're the ones who sell the gas to the ones who do sell it to us. Yeah. And so that's where the government's tried to have an impact on those windfall profits, right? I think the ACCC started a fight with the producers because they're not happy with the structure of the industry, but they started a fight where the end game is very unclear. And now they're in the middle of that fight. It's got very messy indeed because the rules aren't very clear on how that battle will take place. Yeah. The government has tried to do the best it can, I think, in terms of trying to set price caps, but that's complicated. Intervening in a market, even when it's justified, and I think in this case it is never easy to do because the market's quite complicated in various ways, and you just poke a price into that, and it's very difficult to get that price to work through smoothly. I mean, we're in the middle of that now. I think, I would like to think cool heads will prevail, and over the next month or two, they will sort out how this bloody thing's going to work. The industry won't get everything they want by any means, but the industry should be saying, look, we need to help solve this problem. We cannot continue to simply say that, we're the good guys. But equally, I think there's going to have to be a sensible recognition that if you go too far on this, we will fix the problem maybe in the short term, but create a much longer problem in the long term. So it is a very tense situation, I think. And this year and this 6 months will be critical if we're going to make some momentum towards a much more stable, longer-term position. Right.
Well, in the meantime, you and I and all our viewers out there are the losers in all of this while all this is going on. Tony, appreciate it. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.